Which Cunard ship is the best for you? It sounds like a very simple question. It really isn't. Cunard is a brand that survived wars, recessions, global pandemics, industrial strikes, and the invention of the airplane, which literally killed ocean liners. They've carried royalty, celebrities, migrants, soldiers, and people who simply want to cross the ocean in style. The white star, the red funnel, the very idea of British elegance at sea. But here we are in 2026, and Cunard has 4 ships in its fleet, 4 very different personalities, 4 very different ideas of what Cunard even is anymore. So which ship is the best? Let us start with the big one, the grown-up, Queen Mary 2. She is the flagship, the showstopper, the only true ocean liner still sailing today. She was built to do something no other modern passenger ship was designed to do: take on the North Atlantic year-round and win. Her hull is long, narrow, and made from thicker steel. Her bow is sharp and flared, designed to work with the sea, not be bullied by it. Her power is mind-boggling. 4 enormous propulsion pods, giving her the maneuverability of a ballet dancer and a brute force of a train. Designed by Dr. Stephen Payne, OBE, Queen Mary 2 carries the DNA of every Cunard ship that came before her. Lusitania, Mauretania, Queen Mary, QE2. The ship is like a floating family tree. Step on board Queen Mary 2, and the first thing that hits you is not the grandeur, albeit there is a lot of that. It is the space, and not just cruise ship space, where they bung mirrors all over the place, in hope that you wouldn't notice the squeeze. High deck heads like no other ship afloat. Promenade deck that wraps fully around the ship, not interrupted by hot tubs, bars, or a road running track. Marvel at the Commodore's cufflinks and pretend you're in a black and white photograph. Her passenger space ratio is around 57 cubic feet per person. Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria sit at around 44. Queen Anne, bless the little love, comes in at around 34 cubic feet per guest. Queen Mary 2 is a floating museum. The grand lobby gleams with marble effect pillars, brass finishes, and that enormous gold mural towering above you like a reminder that you are supposed to behave yourself on board. The Queen's Room still hosts afternoon tea with white gloves and string quartets. And then there's the planetarium. When it works, it's magical. You sit back, the lights dim, and suddenly you're drifting through space. Lately, it's been closed more often than it is open. Will it survive the big 2027 refit? Well, we don't know. That is the question. Loving a ship does not mean pretending that it's perfect. Even Stephen says,
Queen Mary 2 isn't perfect, but she is as near perfect as I was able to make her.
but on our last sailing, the rust was impossible to ignore. Balconies showing their age, fittings and appliances were dirty and in disrepair. It is the sort of thing that you could probably shrug off on a 20-year-old ferry, but this is the flagship of Cunard and the British Merchant Marine. The cabins are also tired and a bit dated. No USB ports, no interactive TVs, bathrooms that are functional rather than inspiring, and then there's the food. In Britannia class, portions are so small, even a borrower would ask for more. Premium ingredients have quietly vanished. Menus have been trimmed to the bone. The wow factor is slipping away, and fast. For a line that calls itself the fine line, things are starting to look a bit rough around the edges. King's Court, the buffet is adequate, but uninspired. Compare it to Holland America, and suddenly it feels like Cunard is baking in the Tudor times. Where's the choice that you get on other premium lines? The Veranda, once a highlight, now charges $65 per head for smaller portions and less choice. That is not premium, that is cheeky. And service, it's fine, but fine is not what you pay on Cunard. Outside of the grills, service often feels average. When you're paying a premium fare, plus daily gratuities, plus extra charges, average simply does not cut it. Despite all of that, Queen Mary 2 is still the ship people fall in love with. She has a soul. She makes you slow down. She makes you look up from your phone. She feels like a ship. In a world of floating theme parks, Queen Mary 2 is special. However, the most divided ship in the Cunard fleet has to be Queen Anne. The new girl, the one that splits opinions straight down the middle. Step on board and you immediately know she's different. Bright, modern, light-filled, a ship designed for people who prefer Instagram filters to sepia photographs. She's undeniably beautiful, there is no arguing that, but she is not Cunard as many people remember it. The dark woods are gone. The maritime portraits have been removed. The sense that you're walking through a floating chapter of British maritime history has been discarded. In their place, you get pastel tone, soft curves, and modern art that looks like it belongs in a Shoreditch coffee shop where they serve oat milk and avocado on toast. This does not feel like a continuation of Cunard's story for me. It feels like a rebrand presentation, and I have to say, it's felt like that ever since the start. Ever since that god-awful naming ceremony where she had a crowd of godmothers. What was all that about? But now look, the cabins are excellent though. Cunard cabins that feel like they belong in this decade. rather than being preserved to save money and maximise profits. Penhaligon toiletries, glass shower doors, interactive TVs that actually interact with you and give you movies on demand, plug sockets and USB ports scattered around the cabin. You can see what is going on board. Dining is also a clear step forward. More venues, more choices, more flexibility. Taramonto, Aranya, the Pavilion Wellness Cafe, it all feels fresher, lighter, more contemporary. Even the Golden Lion is bigger and easier to get into, which on a sea day is not a small thing. But Queen Anne does have her flaws. The promenade deck is forgettable, cluttered and lacking in space. Compared to Queen Mary 2, where the promenade actively invites you to stroll, Queen Anne seems to tolerate you being there, provided you don't stop, turn around or disrupt the flow of traffic. The Queen's Room is another misstep. It is uninspiring and doesn't look anything like a ballroom. Just look at how it compares to its other sisters. Entertainment by most accounts is much improved. The Bright Light Society adds a premium feel and the programming is clearly aimed at modern tastes, but service remains a sticking point for Cunard. On Queen Mary 2, you have around 0.47 crew members per guest. On Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, that drops to 0.43. On Queen Anne, just 0.39. Now those might look like small differences on paper, but this will inevitably convert to longer waits, thinner service, a feeling that the ship is always slightly stretched. I have to say, Queen Anne feels like she's caught between two worlds. She is not traditional enough to fully satisfy the Cunard purist, but she's not also bold enough to reinvent the brand either, which will allow Cunard to chase after the celebrity and virgin cruisers. Looking great, mostly, functioning well, mostly, but constantly being compared to what she is replacing and who she's trying to appeal to. Now look, she is impressive, she is comfortable, she is modern, but she raises a question Cunard has not yet answered. Is she the future of Cunard, or is she just a beautiful experiment? Queen Victoria, this one is personal. We have sailed on her 5 times now, and every single time it feels like coming home. Flashy? Yes, but in an Edwardian Art Deco way, not a modern one. Queen Victoria is warm, elegant and timeless. Dark woods, Art Deco flourishes, Edwardian touches. She does not shout for your attention, but she'll get it anyway. This is Cunard as people imagine it in their heads. Walking into her grand lobby on embarkation day is still one of the cruise's greatest moments. That first pause at the bottom of the stairs when you've just taken the ship. But maintenance, unfortunately, has dipped slightly in recent cruises. On our last sailing, the balcony needed attention. Nothing dramatic, but it was noticeable. The sort of thing you clock because you care. She remains beautifully kept. I have to say, she wears her age far better than many newer ships wear their youth. Her cabins sit right on the edge between classic and dated. They're comfortable, familiar, quietly elegant, but increasingly behind on the curve compared to other cruise lines. She doesn't have any USB ports, no interactive TV. You half expect the television to politely ask if you would like a CFAX. This is not a ship that wants a personality transplant. She just needs a few sensible upgrades and a bit of sympathy, not a complete overhaul. Dining on board Queen Victoria is fine, but it is limited compared to similar ships with other lines. On colder itineraries, outdoor venues are effectively decorative. The Golden Lion fills up early, especially on sea days, and once it's full, it's full. The buffet is acceptable. It does the job, but it doesn't really excite us. But we do like the pizza and pasta station though. But we've been on her 5 times, so we obviously like her quite a bit. Queen Victoria is reassurance in ship form, and for a lot of Cunard loyalists, that counts for a lot. And finally, Queen Elizabeth. On paper, she should be the safe pair of hands in the Cunard fleet, almost identical in layout to Queen Victoria, and an experience that long-time Cunard guests think they already understand. And that is exactly the problem. Her recent refit has divided opinion sharply. Lighter tones, brighter spaces, a hint of Queen Anne creeping in. It's as if Victoria and Anne went out for cocktails and swapped outfits halfway through the night. Now look, some passengers like the brighter feel, others kind of feel like it stripped away part of her identity. But what is clear from recent reviews is that the refit has not delivered the uplift and experience many were expecting, or the approval Cunard was hoping for. Multiple recent cruise critic reviews mention mould in cabins, showers, toilets, air vents. Service, according to many passengers, is best described as average and slow to respond. And now that is our experience on all of the Cunard ships. It really doesn't live up to that marketing promise, and it is falling behind in the competition, in our opinion. Food is constantly described as okay, which again raises the question of value. Cunard pricing does not suggest okay. For the US market, where Queen Elizabeth has recently been based, the pricing would suggest that it is at least Holland America standards or above, and it really isn't. Afternoon tea, to be fair, does get strong praise in reviews, and one of the few experiences on board that reliably meets experience most of the time you experience it. Entertainment is also widely praised. Shows are described as excellent, polished, and one of the highlights of the voyage. In fact, entertainment often comes across as the ship's strongest department, but those cracks are showing. One long-standing Cunard couple with 9 previous Cunard cruises under their belt described their most recent Queen Elizabeth sailing as not just disappointing, but one of the most disappointing cruises they've ever taken with any line. Their frustration even started before the embarkation. 2 weeks before the sailing, Cunard informed them that the main pavilion pool and wellness cafe would be closed for maintenance for the entire 12-day voyage. Too late to cancel, no compensation offered, not even a token of onboard credit. Now doesn't that sound very Carnival UK? And then there is the money. Passengers repeatedly described the experience as nickel and diming. Queen Elizabeth now sits in this difficult position. She's not traditional enough for the purists, she's not modern enough to justify the comparisons. Brighter, yes. Refined, yes, but increasingly questioned. She's no longer the safe option she once was for many Cunard customers, and taken all together, that is a pattern Cunard cannot ignore. So here's the big question: which Cunard ship is the best? If you value history, purpose, and the romance of proper ocean travel, Queen Mary 2 stands alone. She isn't just Cunard's best ship, she is Cunard's identity. And truthfully, she will always be our recommendation, because sailing on Queen Mary 2 isn't just another cruise, it's something else entirely. It's the difference between stepping on an aircraft and stepping on board Concorde. She is an icon. Yes, she has flaws, yes, she needs investment, and what she offers cannot be replaced. And once it's gone, it's gone. If that doesn't matter to you, then Queen Anne will suit you fine. She's modern, comfortable, she's designed for how people cruise today. She shows where Cunard is heading, and that will really appeal to some. Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth sit somewhere in the middle. Elegant, familiar, but increasingly caught in the middle of a brand trying to balance heritage and commercial reality. So the real question isn't what ship is the best, it's what you want Cunard to be. And if you want to understand exactly why Queen Mary 2 is so special, and while she still matters today, you can watch our documentary Queen Mary 2, The Last Great Ocean Liner.